The likes of Carlisle United, MK Dons, Morecambe, Grimsby Town, Chesterfield and Bradford City have all possibly been playing better than some of their results might suggest. And I guess it's our job on the podcast this evening to work out which teams we can expect improvement from and which teams might continue to underperform. Plenty to get to discuss then on this League Two podcast. Yes, welcome along to here on EFL Debate. If you could get subscribed to us on YouTube and Spotify, that would help us out a lot. But we've got plenty of guests to get into with 6 teams to discuss this evening. So for now, I'm delighted to be joined by Joel Shooter of Morecambe. Joel, thanks so much for joining us. Just wondering, 5 straight 1-0 defeats to start the season for Morecambe. Bit of a almost unheard of to start with 5 scorelines, the exact same. On the one hand, you've never conceded more than 1 goal in a league game, so that's the one thing the positive to cling on to, I suppose. But you yet to find the net, and that's going to be a frustration because it's not been for want of chances, has it?
Yeah, I think, like you say, it is a bit of a statistical anomaly, really, and I'd be very surprised if we saw a team lose their opening 5 games 1-0 at the start of the season. But yeah, I think if we look at the first couple of games, we definitely were. I mean, I see a bit of a progress over the 5 games overall. I think starting off, I thought we looked a pretty solid, well-drilled side, but very little in terms of progressing the ball up the pitch. Then next couple of games, I thought we started to find our groove with that a bit more. We started to kind of be able to work the ball up the pitch. We've got some good midfielders and people like Callum Jones who can get that ball moving up the pitch. But then we were kind of falling at the final third a little bit. Then our last couple of games, I think we have started to create a lot more actual goal-scoring chances. I know we were denied by a pretty heroic goalkeeping performance by Nick Townsend of Newport the other week. Mm-hmm. We were pretty unfortunate not to score from a couple of chances at set pieces, especially from against Crewe at the weekend. So, yeah, we've been getting there. I think, obviously, the goal scoring side is probably one of our weaker points in the squad at the moment, but I think we are worth more goals than the table shows at the moment. I think we're worth more points than the table shows at the moment, which is hugely frustrating, but hopefully it'll come together in the next few weeks and our luck will turn a little bit, because we have ultimately as well, we've not torn up trees, but we've also just been hugely unlucky, I'd say too.
I agree. How important is Gwion Edwards, Joel, going to be to your efforts to break that unwanted duck?
Yeah, he's going to be very important. I think anybody who's watched us on a day that Gwion's on form can see he is by far and away probably our best quality attacker. He's he's very quick. He can really blitz past people. He's got a good shot on him, and I think we look at some things when you're relying on one attacker too much, I think it puts a lot of pressure on them. And I think attacking in general is something that is in nature, because it's one of the hardest things to do, create goals, really. Mm-hmm. It is the hardest thing to do in football. And I think because you've always got so many people trying to stop you and make your life hard for you, sure. It is one of those things that goes in waves. You dip in it, you have an amazing couple of games and you're maybe not quite as on it the next couple of games, and you need other people to step up in those moments. And we see flashes from the rest of the team. But yeah, I think against Newport the other week, he was particularly spectacular.
Second half, yeah,
blitzing past the left back, and he really is so good in his day. And he's been unfortunate not to get a goal, particularly against Newport. But yeah, I think we'll need a lot from him, but we'll also need other people to step up at times, because we can't just all rely on one person, really.
Absolutely. Another player that caught my eye against Newport was Callum James, Joel. But one thing I find is sometimes Callum James has that instinct to break into the final third and sort of be very attack-minded. But the problem I think you've got is when you're playing him as one of two central midfielders in a 4-2-3-1, and your other central midfielder is Jan Songo, you need someone who's able to step on second balls and have the quality to switch the play. So it's one thing Callum Jones making those really attacking runs and trying to be part of the front four, join up with the front four. But I also think that when the ball comes back into midfield, you need his quality on the ball, because when you get Songo on the ball, he's with all respect to him, is very limited. Whereas I think when you get Callum Jones on the ball in that middle third, he can really ping a diagonal.
Yeah, I think at times we see in our build-up play when Callum Jones' his starting position is a little bit deeper, he is really effective in that role. And obviously ahead of him, we've got Harvey McAdam in the kind of more designated number 10 role, who's got a goal in the AFL Trophy against Wigan the other week, and he's stepping up into that number 10 role. But you do want a bit, something from you that kind of more. I think Callum Jones is probably more of a 6/8, but you do need a little bit from him going forwards. And like you say, when he goes forwards, obviously you have a bit of that. He loses quality from deep midfield. At the same time, you need, I think, particularly for the way that Derek plays, having a defensive midfielder, whether it's Jan Songo, whether it's not Ben White, Tom White. Either way, you need one of them there in some aspects to kind of mop up and cover for him. Perhaps Tom White might be a bit more of the answer. I know I've got him in my own.
You're like Ross at his wedding with Emily.
I know, yeah. But so maybe Tom White is a bit more of the answer. He's very, very aggressive and quick to the ball. He's pretty handy with it. At the same time, is he going to be a player that picks the ball up, switches play, pings ball about? Probably not, but he can move it around pretty tidily. So, yeah, I think it's just about finding that balance. I'm not too unhappy with the balance we've got at the moment, but yeah, who'd be a football manager?
Absolutely. What do you think about the centre-back partnership you've got at the moment, Joel? Because you've got Jamie Stott in there, who had a decent season in the National League last season with Halifax.
Yeah, I like Stott. He's a good player. He wins quite a bit in the air. He mops up nicely. He gets stuck in. He's not bad on the ball. It's been a really solid addition, really. And then obviously alongside, we started the season with George Ray, who looked really strong in pre-season, and he looked really strong for 30 minutes against Walsall until he got a little fracture in his leg, which is unfortunate. But obviously we've had Rhys Williams come in, and he's I felt he got a bit of an introduction to League Two with Courtney Baker-Richardson. Really going at him, but he's done well. He's done really well. Rhys Williams, he's very good in the air. He's good on the ball. He's pretty. He's a pretty mobile player as well. Gets stuck in. So yeah, I'd say I'm very happy with our centre back pairings. I'm happy with the recruitment we've managed to be able to do in the absence of George Ray and get somebody like Rhys Williams in.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess the big challenge for Morecambe at the moment is probably up top, because strikers are the most valuable commodity, and when you're in the financial situation that Morecambe are in, it's difficult, I guess, to attract strikers of a certain quality.
Yeah, I think we, partly through our own making, in fairness, not stumbled upon, but we had a gem in Michael Mellon last season, and we also had that little bit of an advantage that he had a little bit of time with us in League One to kind of really get to grips with men's football. But then ended up getting injured pretty quickly in that spell with us, and having to go back to his parent club. So basically, he got injured before he kind of found his feet, and anybody worked out that he was good. So it was quite a bit. So it could have worked out well that he could come back with a bit of that know-how and knowing what he's going to expect, and then being a good platform to really showcase his finishing ability. Because I'd say Michael Mellon was the best finisher up there with Phil Jevons that we've ever seen at the club. I'd say actually probably in terms of his all-round shooting as well as range of finishes. I'd say he's right up there. He's pretty much the best. So yeah, I think we're missing that. You can't rely on that every season. And one thing that Derek's always liked about his teams is he wants people scoring goals from different areas of the pitch. When we went up, Carlos Mendes Gomez was our top scorer from a wide position. Cole Stockton did get 13 goals, but Aaron Wilde got double figures from midfield. Tumani Diarra chipped in with a few. Adam Phillips in the first half of the season got about 8 goals, I think. So with Derek, he likes people chipping in and he wants people chipping in. So I always think if we have a striker who's not hugely prolific, it doesn't bother me a massive deal under Derek, because if they're doing the hard work and they're getting in the right areas and they're setting people up and they're working for the team, then as long as they're setting up and assisting other people in their goal scoring exploits, it doesn't necessarily bother me a huge amount.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense, and hopefully they can be part of a better, a good attacking unit. Hopefully, yeah. But where was I coming to? Luke Hendry. I was actually quite impressed with the resilience that he showed against Newport, because he was up against a really tricky winger in Bobby Camwa, who's given other fullbacks a lot of difficulty. And I thought he had some difficult moments early on in that game, but he actually stuck to the task really well. And I was actually quite impressed with how he defended.
Yeah, he's diligent. He's hard working. He's, like you say, I think it's always in. I mean, I think, especially in the opening 10 minutes of the game, that's the period when a winger really has the advantage over a fullback, because you can watch all the videos you want, but it is, and you can prepare and it'll help you definitely. But at the end of the day, it's still going to take you 5-10 minutes when you're on the pitch, when you're staring in the whites of his eyes and really get to grips with what he's going to do, what kind of tricks he's going to pull on you. And I think in those 5-10 minutes, winger's always got a bit of an advantage. But I thought, like you said, I thought he got a really good handle on it. He starts to understand what the winger's preferences is, what direction he's going to go, what his kind of little, almost like his tells are in a game of poker. And he's done really well. And I'd say throughout the season, he's not wowed. He's not done kind of crazy things going forward like Joel Senior did. But he's been really, really diligent and been tough to get around and tough to play against. And at the end of the day, that's absolutely fine by me. As long as there are other people on the side who can kind of put the yards and attacking wise. First and foremost, he needs to defend and make us difficult to beat, and he's doing that really well.
Yeah, certainly is. Just before I let you go, Joel, because I know you've got to shoot off shortly, but what's the overriding feeling for you? Sort of frustration or disappointment at not having scored in the first 5 games, or encouragement at competitive performance levels?
A bit of both. I think the frustration is sort of taken over a bit, because we've been written to twice by the PGMOL to apologise for incorrect decisions over red cards. We've had now, obviously, it's come up that Chris Foy said that the penalty that got given for Crewe shouldn't have been given. So there's a lot of frustration there. Frustration that just the misfortune that some of our goals haven't gone in. But you got to have hope in the performances, because they have been pretty decent, and you just got to hope it turns around and your luck comes in and things start to click a bit more.
Well, we wish you well, Joel, and all the best for the rest of the season, mate.
Cheers, Gabe. Thank you.
Top man. Delighted to bring in now Ewan Hudson of Bradford City. Ewan, good evening. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good evening. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, cheers. How are you feeling about Bradford City's start to the season?
Yeah, really, really good. Obviously, 5th place in the table. Up there, level on points with teams that have had really, really good starts like Gillingham. So all the signs are really promising that this is going to be a great season.
Yeah, absolutely. Andy Cook's back to his best, it seems.
Yeah, I don't think he really ever left it, to be honest. Obviously, looking at the season where he was top goal scorer 2 years ago, had a slight dip off last season to only 19 goals a season, but in League Two, that's still fantastic. That's still absolutely brilliant. And this season, even looking past his best still. In terms of, he looks fitter, he's more willing to run. He does look the leanest.
Looking beyond his best, not
looking beyond his best, not looking past his best. No, it's been a good debate amongst Bradford fans. Sort of how far we think he's going to go, because he's just hit his 75th and 76th goals in Bradford colours, which takes him quite high up the list of all-time scorers for the club.
That'd be an interesting bit of trivia, wouldn't it? I don't know who's Naki Wells would be up there, wouldn't he?
No, he was only here for 2.5 seasons, I believe. Okay, right. So basically,
Did he play Carboni? Did he score a few?
He was only here for a short time as well.
Okay.
I'm trying to think who was at the top.
keep
But
going
yeah,
with this.
I'm not the person to ask about that for pointless trivia. But fans have been debating, how long can he keep this up? Obviously, he's 33 now, and he's still got a 2-year contract with the club going. And sort of it's up to City fans to think how far he will go. But if he stays in the fitness and form that he is now, where he's never looked, leaner and faster, then who knows how long you can keep this up for at this level. Because his game isn't exactly demanding of a striker, apart from just the pure physical side of things.
His game isn't demanding as a striker.
Well, he doesn't run a lot.
Okay.
He's looking at it purely from a physical standpoint. He doesn't run a lot.
That surprised me actually, because I felt like certainly in that epic 32 goal season he had, he did get through quite a bit of graft, and he does sort of run the channels as well. So it's interesting to hear that. Whether it's this season or before then, actually you feel like he kind of his role's actually quite streamlined.
Yeah, I think in the Mark Hughes system, obviously we tended to play with one or two up front, and with a 5 in midfield, which would mean that the wingers were doing the running of the channels for him. But in this system where we tend to have a back 5 or a back 3, the wingers do get forward, yes, but often Cook will be drifting wide to collect the ball from long passes upfield, or from just simply to create space for other strikers to make that run.
Bobby Poynton isn't in the City starting 11 at the moment, Ewan. That's a big surprise for me based on his sensational form at the back end of last season. That was arguably the catalyst, him coming into the 11. Why do you think Graham Alexander has left him out of the 11?
I can't say for certain, but certainly from my point of view, this is quite a controversial opinion, but I don't think Poynton's game quite suits how Bradford play in most occasions. So when we play at home, obviously we're looking at most teams coming in to sit off and see what they can get early on in the game before sort of dropping back and allowing us to take most of the ball, because our home form, obviously over the last few years, has been shocking. So they allow us that ball because they know in recent history, we have been pretty poor at home. Poynton doesn't do well in those situations. He needs space, and he thrives in chaos, I think, really. When he's got the ball at his feet and he can run at defenders, which is a style more suited to away matches, I think, when you're going to be hitting on the counter-attack more. So I think at home, we're much better off going with more technical-minded players, the likes of Patterson, Sarcevic, players who can really deliver a great cross into the box. And Poynton becomes this sort of fantastic super sub for the team, where the energy he brings late on in the game can really cause teams problems.
Interesting. I hadn't thought of it like that before. That's really interesting. I'm actually a little bit surprised to hear you think Patterson. What's his first name? Patterson.
Alex
Patterson. Yeah. Alex Patterson and Anthony Sarcevic are more technical players than Poynton. So, I mean, if you can develop on that side.
Just talking about from a purely dead ball stance, I think probably they're better. I think, like I say, Poynton's a fantastic striker of the ball when we're talking about shooting. Last season is and this season as well, continuing, his shooting from outside the box is fantastic.
He gets real technique on those, doesn't he? Yeah.
But go on.
Sure. Also, but from on the other end of the age spectrum, Ewan, is Richie Smallwood, and we're starting to see the player that Bradford City thought they'd got in 2022, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. His game's developed massively, and as someone who goes to a lot of away matches, one of the things I've been impressed about the development that he's had is his willingness to get stuck in, and his willingness to really throw his body about and make challenges. Because I think when we saw him in the first season, he was sort of that classic championship midfielder of a bit of a Rolls Royce who trots about the field, making those big long passes and stretching the play. But I think we've come to see him as much more of a traditional 6 now, really sort of bulldog energy, willing to throw slide tackles about and win the ball back. And he has really improved, I think, in that aspect of his game. If only his set pieces could improve.
Yeah, let's hope they can. We've mentioned Andy Cook earlier. Who's the best foil for him? Because you've obviously got Ollie Sanderson in the equation at the moment. Verdane Oliver, I would have thought, is a little bit down. That I've not been hugely impressed by him from the outside. So are we looking at Ollie Sanderson as the best partner? Because you've got a few strikers, I think, in the squad.
Yeah. I think at the start of the season, the nailed-on candidate for playing alongside Eddie Cook would have been Callum Kavanagh. Obviously, with his fantastic form since coming in at the back end of last season. But he's unfortunately not hit the ground running in this season, and Alexander's had to give way to Sanderson, who has really hit the ground running at City. He's really strong in the air, I think. He's fast on the ground as well, and he's willing to run at players. Been really impressed with him. I think as well at this level, sometimes loan signings like that can just sort of come and go and disappear without really any uproar. But I've been really impressed with him so far. And Kavanagh's been pulled aside, so to speak, just to say, well, you need a week to work on your sharpness and your fitness, and we'll see where we're at after that.
Well, hopefully he can come into the equation. Is Tyler Smith fit as well? Do you know?
I'm not sure what is happening with him. Obviously, he was a fantastic sort of super sub towards the end of last season, and played a big part earlier in the campaign as well, with some big goals away at Doncaster. But yeah, he seems to be firmly down the pecking order. I'm surprised he hasn't gone. In fact, he might have already. I might have missed that, but I don't think he has left the club.
Yeah, well, hopefully he can make contribution as well. Lots of strikers, so plenty of options there, but really only one spot because of Andy Cook's form. I wanted to ask you about Kieran Kelly, Ewan, because as much as this is a squad on the older side, he's like Poynton, one of those young talents that fans are excited about.
Yeah, he's fantastic. I think a lot of the attention coming out of the transfer window was on the departure of Sam Stubbs, but I think fans do need to wake up and realise that Kieran Kelly is, a lot better than he is. He's a lot more mobile, and he's certainly a better ball-playing centre-back. In Alexander's system as well, I think he likes to get those centre-backs forward to the edge of the box. We saw this a lot against Bromley, where the centre-backs will be camped on the edge of the box, ready to deliver shallow crosses towards the back post, which really do hurt teams, especially, when they're camped, when, coming away to Bradford. So yeah, him being good on the edge of the box in a lot of different situations, and obviously being a fantastic defender is a great asset for the club going forward.
How are you feeling about the style of football at Bradford at the moment? Is it sort of better than we were maybe expecting this season?
Yeah, I think it's really improving, especially at home. Obviously, we saw a great result against Bromley, where we were the better side for 90 minutes comfortably, and we really, really hurt them. I've never seen Bradford in the past few years, especially at home, really attack a team and realise their weaknesses, because we kept doing the same thing, these little shallow crosses from the edge of the box. Bromley just simply couldn't handle the pressure and the amount of balls we did put into their area. And against Carlisle as well, was really impressed at the way we took control of the game after Carlisle scored their equaliser. I think in the past seasons, you're looking at Bradford spiralling in that situation, and after conceding that equaliser would go on to lose the game because they were simply incapable of retaining the ball and regaining control of the game. But after 5 or 10 minutes in that match, we were back to passing the ball around really nicely. And 10 minutes after they score, we get that goal to go back ahead. And after that goal went in, there was only ever going to be one winner of the match. Carlisle really didn't threaten after that point, I thought. So that really impressed me, the ability to regain control of a match at home. And that's something that we haven't seen in recent seasons.
Yeah, well, that sounds really encouraging. I want to ask you about Jamie Walker, Ewan, because this is someone who's had a bit of an on and off time with injuries in his time at Valley Parade and perhaps in his career generally. But I think when he has been fit, he's been a nice source of creativity for you.
Yeah, he's a great danger man. He runs so much off with the ball and without the ball. He created the first goal in the Carlisle match. His pressing throughout that match was brilliant. He's never afraid to get stuck in and throw himself about, and that really impresses me about him. I think when he's, like you say, when he's fit, I definitely prefer him over Patterson and Sarcevic for an attacking option. Like with Poynton, he's a great carrier of the ball, and he is really threatening when he gets up to full pace.
Yeah, well, hopefully he can continue to make that impact. How's Tyreek Wright doing? By the looks of things, in a bit of a wing-back role this season, a bit more of an attacking choice as opposed to Brad Halliday at right wing back, who I imagine is a very good defender and can contribute going forward, whereas Tyreek Wright's more of a converted winger, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. Halliday has great qualities all over the pitch and is that classic wing-back role where they're fantastic going forward, but equally as solid going back. Yeah, and Tyreek is definitely a winger, masquerading as a wing-back at the moment. But I think we were talking about this on Saturday, saying that he's probably going to be okay defending in, I'd say, 75% of most League Two games. It is only when you get those technical teams who really are going to know how to hurt you and really run at you that you're going to struggle. And that was the case against Carlisle. He didn't have a fantastic game, but he did pick himself up an assist. So, it swings and roundabouts. His defensive qualities aren't fantastic, but he has shown promise. I think obviously there's an awareness to train him in that role and really bring him into the limelight as that left wing back. He reminds me a lot of Alex Gilead, who started out as a proper winger, playing off the right side, but then eventually came, back into midfield and eventually started playing at wing back for Bradford. So Tyreek Wright could be the same, a really versatile player who's very, very good going forward, but needs to build on those defensive skills. And if he does that, then obviously that's fantastic for the back line.
Yeah, hopefully he can do that. Cheek Diabate, Ewan, what sort of an impact has he made replacing Sam Stubbs?
Really good, I think. Obviously, I've only seen him in 2 games, and one of those was a EFL trophy game against Newcastle's under-21. So you never know really what to take from those games. But there was a strong performance in that game, and I thought he looked really solid against Carlisle. Obviously, dealing with the big man up front, Charlie Wyke. I thought he was really good against him, strong in the air, but also playing into that Alexander philosophy of passing the ball out. We're gonna be quick. As soon as the goalkeeper gets the ball, we're going to be playing out from the back and we're going to be moving through the gears. And I think Sam Stubbs probably didn't fit that philosophy, which is why he was moved on. And I think Diabate does fit that philosophy of a ball-playing centre-back who, sits, but will come forward.
Sam Walker, then, Ewan, I felt a little bit for him with that error he made because he's otherwise been very solid for City since joining in January. But I liked that he's got a good sense of humour and sort of humility about him, I guess.
Yeah, well, there couldn't have been a more poignant, ironic moment for him to drop a clanger with Bradford fans booing Harry Lewis for 90 minutes through last Saturday's game. The comedic timing was horrific from the home end. But like you say, he has been one of the most consistent players, if not the most consistent player in a Bradford shirt for the past sort of 12 months. He is really solid between the sticks. And I think at a time, obviously, where we were concerned about losing our first choice goalkeeper, he has been excellent. And long may that continue.
Absolutely. And just before I bring in Lee Rooney from Brunton Bugle, just wondering, are you more optimistic about Bradford City than you were before the start of the season?
Yeah, I think so. I think obviously we've been in this situation before where, we've had a strong start to the season and we completely trail off going into the winter, have a mini revival in March. And then by the time we actually pick up some form, it's far too late. And this season could have been that all over again and no one would have really batted an eyelid, especially, the pundits and the naysayers. But obviously the home form is really positive, and especially the performances that we are putting in. I think the biggest point now is going to be consistency because obviously we had a fantastic result at home against Bromley and then we threw it all away at Grimsby with a really shocking performance. And then we came back again against Carlisle with a really strong performance. So we need to keep that momentum and consistency up in order to be able to challenge around the area the table was currently sat in.
Well, you're dangerously close to converting me as a naysayer into a believer, which is very worrying.
I'll keep trying every week.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining us. And
Thank you very much.
Cheers. Delighted to be joined by Lee Rooney from the Brunton Bugle. Good evening, Lee. Thanks for your time. Really appreciate you joining us. How are you feeling about Carlisle's managerial vacancy?
It's quite exciting because in the past, we often have to sort of survive on scraps. So, I mean, before Simo came in, you look at the two previous ones. Chris Beach was a bit of a punt and worked for a bit, but then, very badly went off the rails. Even like you look at Keith Millen was just the most random appointment ever. And it feels weird because it feels like it's now a really attractive job. I know people can say, "Oh, look, you're third bottom," and say whatever, but it is an attractive job because there's so much investment going into the club on and off the pitch, and I just feel like
it'll be one of the most attractive jobs, I think. Dare I say, outside the Championship, outside the real big clubs in League One, I think it's a great job for somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. So, there's a lot of names flying around. Some of them are quite exciting. Some of them, it's fair to say, are less appealing. But generally, I think the feeling among fans is that it's quite an exciting era coming forward. And with the change in setup as well, with a sporting director being put in place rather than just a manager on his own. It's a brave new world for Carlisle United.
Certainly is. What do you think this appointment needs then for Carlisle? Somebody, obviously, from what you mentioned there, it's got to be someone who's happy to work with a sporting director in that structure.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't think there's that. In terms of the newer sort of coaches coming through these days, I don't think there's that many who are against the idea of doing that now, are they? I think it's only your very, very old school managers, and even a lot of them kind of accept it these days. So I don't think that's necessarily a major issue, really. I feel like I'd like someone who's a bit maybe he's a bit younger, a bit ambitious, and looking forward. And rather than someone who's failed at loads of different clubs, I want someone to come in who maybe has a little bit of pedigree, or even someone who's just new and up and coming and has some good new ideas. Because the owners have made it very clear they want a more exciting attacking brand of football. It's not necessarily tick-a-tacker, but it's got to be a bit more exciting, a bit more front foot, I think was the key thing they want to see. So, like I said, there's lots of interesting names out there, but proof's in the pudding, and they won't get appointed until the sporting director's sorted. And the murmurs we're sort of hearing is that early next week the sporting director will be sorted, and then potentially the head coach will follow not too long after that.
Mm-hmm. So let me go through I think it's very difficult to talk about specific names, Lee, because firstly, I wouldn't expect you to know people who haven't been associated with Carlisle United. That's just sort of common sense, really. You follow your own club, I suppose. But also, there might be coaches who are quite obscure, so it's a difficult one to sort of pick out specific names. But if I give you really high profile coach who's worked, with top young talent in the country, you've got an up and coming manager who's had success in non-league or abroad, or you've got your experienced manager who's won promotion from this level before or managed higher. If I give you those three categories at the start of 10, what kind of category would you be sort of veering towards?
I don't think there's a particular category I'm veering towards. I think you've basically named the top three of the betting odds there, haven't you, essentially, in the way you've put it there. Obviously,
No, not intentionally. Is Rob Elliott the favourite?
Rob Elliott is odds on at the moment, but I think that's linked to the fact that he missed Gateshead's game at the weekend and people put 2 and 2 together. He missed it because he was ill, basically, and people have made presumptions there. Ryan Lowe's second, and then Barry Murphy is third. So it kind of fits into those three categories, really, when you look at it. And after that, you've got a couple at 20 to 1, and then it's all 25 to 1 and 33 to 1. So I think it's more a case of, from what I can gather, in terms of the betting, there's probably not a lot of money going on at the moment, but all the money seems to be going on Elliott, which is probably why he's gone so short. There's probably not a huge amount to read into that. But yeah, I mean, when you look at those, any of those three would be quite appealing to me, to be honest. I think it sounds weird because he's recently managed in the Championship and obviously had promotion from this level before. But of the three, probably Ryan Lowe's probably the one that doesn't excite me as much as the other two, but it still does excite me. I still think it's a good appointment. To be fair, I think he's a really interesting one. I mean, look. We all know it didn't end very well at Preston for him. So, and it's funny because a lot of our fans are desperate for us to move away from playing free at the back, and yet they're all calling for us to get Ryan Lowe as manager. I'm like, you do know he played free at the back at Preston, So
very Argyle.
yeah, he generally played free at the back a lot of the time when he was manager of those clubs. So, maybe our fans might change their minds slightly on that one. But I mean, Brian Barry Murphy really interests me because obviously he's worked at such a top level and playing that kind of football. He's someone who could come in with fresh ideas and really freshen it up and make it something new. But I think we're all Carlisle fans were very impressed with Rob Elliott. We played against Gateshead in pre-season, and to be truthful, we had a lot of injury issues in pre-season, as has been the case for a long time for us. But they played us off the park at times in that game. They played some really lovely football, really exciting. Look, the fact that they're top of the
they were like
no surprise.
Didn't they win like at a canter or something, or they're just absolutely?
I think I can't remember what the score was. To be honest, we had a bit of a mishmash of a team. I'll say it's not. I wouldn't have read that too much into it, but the way they played, the style of football they play was really good, and the fact that look, they're top of the National League and they're there for a reason, and that's despite losing one of their best players with a broken leg a couple of games in Greg Ollie, I think, wasn't it? So they're doing fantastic stuff. But yeah, any of those three names would excite me. When you go beyond that, there's a few other names that are interesting. I mean, Mark Butch-Wilkinson will be quite an interesting one, similar to Brian Barry Murphy. He's got links to the club as well. He's obviously under 18s manager at Liverpool, so he's working at a very high level too. Someone who's worked with excellence, I think, would be really, really good. Actually, some of his fresh ideas to potentially take us forward. And I know there's one name a few people have thrown about, and I suppose you probably want to get onto him at some point. But I think if you ask the vast majority of Carlisle fans, Pete Wild is a big, big no-no.
Right. Yes, I think I've been made aware of that. Where I was like, but I want to come on to Brian Barry Murphy because I actually really liked the work that he did at Rochdale, and I think yes, he did oversee relegation. But when you look at how Rochdale have plummeted since then due to these massive off-field problems and really dodgy people behind the scenes, I think that becomes a lot more understandable. He did actually keep them up twice, taking over in a difficult position in his first season and then keeping them up comfortably in, I think, the 1920 campaign. Where was I? Constantly losing their best players, getting them playing some good football, and then being interested with developing some of the top prospects in the country. I know he was linked with certain jobs, and I think whenever he's been interviewed for jobs, he's had these real clear structural demands where we want to have a B team, we want to have a certain structure. This is what I want to work in with, and I think that might have been why one or two of his interviews might have sort of broken down in terms of talk, because he's got very high standards. And I think in a way that might be a repellent for the wrong club, but it also might be an attraction for the right club. And maybe Carlisle United's that.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's weird. We're almost a blank page of a club at times at the moment, because obviously all the work that's gone on down the ground is fantastic. And the standards that, I mean, if you've seen the pictures of the new dressing room and stuff like that, it's incredible, some of the stuff they've done in like just one summer. The training ground is a work in progress, and it sounds like they're going to actually start work on that fairly soon. They're just going through some of the planning process for that. But, that's potentially another £4 million investment. He can basically shape that the way he wants it, essentially. He can say, we want this and this and this. This is what we want for the standards. We want to, let's get the academy up to the next category level, build a dome, that kind of thing. And
exactly,
I genuinely... And obviously, in terms of it, catchment area, you can attract a lot of youngsters if you get that done right. And, you'll probably see in the crowds as well. We can get when things are going. I mean, even when things aren't going well, we're still getting 8,000 crowds at the start of this season. So, I think he might look at it. We might be a little bit too low for him if we're being realistic. But he may well look and say, actually, you know what? I've probably got a bit of money to spend in January as well to get a couple of extra players in. Every chance he can go and give Pep a quick call and say, "Is there any chance I could borrow a couple of the youngsters for the rest of the season?" That kind of thing. I think he's a really, really interesting one, and I think a lot of our fans have come around to the idea that he would be quite good. But yeah, I think he'd be quite good.
Yeah, I'd be really excited with Brian Barry Murphy, but I also feel like I think with Ryan Lowe, I'd be more confident of him being an instant hit and getting results straight away. Whereas with Barry Murphy, I think he's got a higher long-term ceiling. And I definitely think that if he did well at Carlisle, he'd be the one that would be leaving the club for the right reasons rather than the wrong ones. But I do think that this style of football is so niche, it's probably the sort where you're going to need to have a little bit of patience while he works it out. And I'm almost wondering whether the club probably regret giving Simo the start of the season, because it was probably the loyal and the kind of quote unquote noble thing to do, but I also think it sets them back in terms of making a managerial change so early.
Yeah, I think you're right to an extent. Look, I think all Carlisle fans near enough wanted Simmer to succeed. I don't think anyone wanted to fail.
Of course.
And he got that extra time because of the work he'd done before. And I kind of like the fact that we were a bit more open to giving him time, because a lot of clubs would have just, sacked him at Christmas last year rather than giving him a bit of leeway to actually build things. As it is, I think he's actually built together still a fairly decent squad. I think there's holes there. There's a couple of holes that, I think he had a bit of a blind spot in terms of signing wingers, and he probably should have signed some wingers, despite, he said we don't play with wingers, but just having the option would have been good. So yeah, that's probably the main area where we need to get a bit of cover come January, or even in the free agent market. But with hindsight, we probably should have moved him into that sporting director role or offered him the chance to move into it.
Oh wow!
I think it would have made perfect. It would have made perfect sense if he'd sort of said towards the end of last season, once we'd been confirmed relegated, the plan is in the summer I'm going to step upstairs and oversee the training ground and all, everything, that side of it, rebuilding the academy, and we're going to find someone to replace me as head coach or something like that. I think 90% of fans would have gone, yeah, that makes sense. Totally understand that, but it got to the point where, because of the start of the season and everything like that, there's no way you could have done that now. So yeah. the boat, very much the boat would be missed on that one. So, which is a real shame. But I'm sure he'll be back soon. To get the send off he actually really deserved, rather than the one he got at the end of the Tranmere match.
Yeah, hopefully there can be some sort of evening or some sort of exhibition match, if you like, just to give him a proper thank you. And I'm sure the board will do that, because they do seem like they understand the nuances of English football and the sentimentality aspect. So let's say then you did bring in a coach, Lee, that wants to play, whether that's Rob Elliott, whether that's Brian Barry Murphy, that did want to evolve the style to something more attacking, I think was the word you used, not necessarily tiki-taka. Although with BBM, that definitely probably would be the route. Have you got defenders who you think can play?
I actually genuinely do. I think some of our fans would disagree, but I think we do. I think we've got two excellent fullbacks. I think that's one area we really have strengthened well in the summer. And unfortunately, it looks like Ben Williams might be out for a while based on the injury he picked up at Bradford. It didn't look good at all. But Cameron Harper made his first league start appearance for us in that game, and he looked really good going forward. He's probably our best performer, to be fair, on him. So getting him back to fitness is great. Archie Davis has looked a really good find. In terms of going forward, he's a really exciting player. This is the thing. There's a bit of debate amongst some of our fans about whether John Mellish can play the back four. I think he can. He did it a few times last season, and he was fine in that role. I think Terrell Thomas, actually, to be fair, Terrell Thomas looks a great signing. I've been really impressed with me. The way he brings the ball out of defence and he steps in, he looks really good. Unfortunately, he picked up an injury against Bradford as well. Hopefully, it's not too bad. It was a precaution why he was taken off. I think they're all capable of playing passing football. Ben Barkley certainly is. We've seen that before. He played in midfield. He's very comfortable playing the ball. I think Lavelle's probably the only one you'd look at and maybe think, is he capable of doing it? And when he comes on, I think he's a very good kick it and head it, old school League Two centre half Lavelle. But when he came on against Bradford, we dropped a bit deep, and you could see that at a time when we really need to be pushing forward. So yeah, Lavelle's one who I'm not so sure on. And Hayden, Hayden's a tight enough footballer. If you keep it simple, I'm sure he'll be fine. The key thing for us at the moment is getting the midfield sorted out. People are going about, can the defence play out? They'll get the confidence with that in time. We just need to get a settled midfield, and that has been just a real round out. It's been round our neck all season. It's holding us back essentially. So if we can get that sorted, hopefully, fingers crossed.
What's the state of play with Callum Guy?
From what I can gather, we're looking at sometime into next month. He'll be back ready, which is so frustrating, because I'm sure you'd agree. When he's fully fit, he's one of the best midfielders in the division. And what he does, especially, he screens that back four and spreads the ball about so well. And he'd added goals to his game in that season. We won promotion from League Two. So yeah, it's frustrating that he's been out for so long. Because again, if he'd been fit, I think last season, I'm not saying we would have stayed up, but would have been closer to avoiding relegation. I think if he'd been fit, but he wasn't. We had to deal with it. And the problem is you brought in Vela and Neil, and I think Vela looks a tidy player, actually. I think he looks better when you push him a little bit further forward. But Neil hasn't really hit the heights he did at Barrow, I think. He looks quite stiff and slow at times. It's frustrating because you can see he's got that strength, and he can get stuck in, and he can really.
He's got a good
quite well.
diagonal pass on him, Harrison Neal. I think I saw the highlights against Bradford, and he played one nice one to the flank.
Yeah, he's quite good with them, but it just for me at the moment, I think he's played pretty much every single game since he came in.
Right.
And I do wonder if maybe he actually needs a bit of a breakout the team almost in that sense. Whereas, Harrison Biggins.
It's interesting. It's funny because he went to Stevenage at the start of last season, didn't play at all. Yeah. So all of a sudden he's gone to the other side of the spectrum.
Yeah. Yeah, and Harrison Biggins has looked quite tidy in his day. Dom Sadie's the one who quite excites me actually, because he played on the wing against Bradford, which he's not really his position. He's more of a number 10 in midfielder or like a number 8. And when he played there in the trophy against Forest under 21s, he looks so good on the ball. He's such a tidy little player. I think once he gets really settled into it, he could have a massive impact for us.
Let's hope he can. How are you feeling about the rest of the season? And do you think that with the right appointment, it's still very early in the season, you can put a run together and into that promotion equation?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't see why not. I mean, you look at Doncaster last season, the second half of the season they had. I think that gives hope to any fan base you look. They left it a little bit late, and hopefully we're getting things sorted a little bit sooner than that, you'd think. But no, it gives you that bit of hope, doesn't it? And like I said, I think we have got good players. I think once Charlie White gets a goal, he'll go on a run. He just needs that first goal to get him over the line as much as anything at the moment. And Jordan Jones, again, someone like him, when he gets fit, I think most teams at our level would have a Jordan Jones in their team quite happily. So it's a case of getting up to speed, get this new manager in so we can implement his style as soon as possible. And yeah, I can't see why not. I've had some of our fans suggesting we're in a relegation battle. It's just ridiculous. It's far too early to be talking about that.
Dear me. Oh goodness!
I think the only team who could probably argue who are in a relegation battle is Morecambe, and I think they knew that from pretty much the start of pre-season. To be fair,
yeah, I think Morecambe, Accrington, Stanley, Harrogate are probably the teams that I'm really worried about. I don't see too many more teams getting dragged into a relegation battle.
Yeah, and plus we also had, if you look at the fixtures we've had at the start, it's actually been quite a tough start. Gillingham away, everyone expected them to do well, and in that game, they won 4-1. But actually, if you look at the stats, it didn't really reflect the game. We could have been winning at half time, but 2 sloppy mistakes really cost us badly, and that's been our downfall all season. Sloppy mistakes. That's kind of what we're hoping a new head coach can come in and sort out. And then, Barrow was one which played on adrenaline. Just get through that game really. MK Dons, you didn't have a great start, but they look a decent side. They really do. They play some nice football, and then Tranmere was just the Amari Patrick show, unfortunately. And then this weekend, again, mistakes costing us against Bradford, a game where we could have nicked a point. I think if it finished a draw that game, I don't think either side would have grumbled too much. But just life, isn't it, for us at the moment, especially.
Well, Lee, best luck with the manager hunt at Carlisle, and hopefully the rest of the season goes for you, mate.
Cheers. Thanks very much.
Top man, good luck with the podcast as well. Thanks, Lee. Delighted to be joined by Tom from Spireites Write of Chesterfield. Tom, thanks for joining us this evening. Really appreciate your time. Just wondering how you're feeling about Chesterfield's start, because it's only the 2 wins, but you'll feel like based on the way you've played, you might have been able to have 3 or 4.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, like you say, it's only 2 wins, but it's 2 wins, 2 draws, and only 1 loss, which I think for a team that's just been promoted is pretty solid. We've conceded a lot less goals in the first few games than we were sort of letting in at the start of last season, which I think instantly shows that we've improved defensively. And obviously, a lot of work's been put into that in terms of recruitment, but also in terms of our sort of in possession shape. Cook's gone to sort of a back 3 kind of in possession formation, if that makes sense. So I feel like solidified us quite a lot. And obviously, the likes of Che Dunkley, Lewis.
Is it the left back that tucks in, Tom?
No, so it's what's the best way to describe it? So the fullbacks push up, the centre halves go wide, and typically one of the centre mids will drop off and sort of be that deep anchor, if you know what I mean.
Right. Interesting.
Yeah. Or failing that, one of the fullbacks will push up and the other one will drop in and make a free, if that makes sense.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, because I was going to say, I watched the 5-0 victory at Crewe, and you're 3-0 up inside 11 minutes, so you should have a whip round and get me tickets for most games, Tom. But I noticed that Vontae Daly-Campbell actually got forward quite a lot and linked up really nicely with Dylan Markanda, who looks a fantastic pickup from Tottenham Hotspur.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I think all of our signings have been absolutely spot on so far. We've strengthened every position that I think fans are a bit worried about coming into League Two. And we've also somehow managed to find a way to strengthen our attacking midfield, which I didn't think was possible, to be honest, with the options we already had there. And it's probably quite lucky we did, actually, because obviously we've had injuries to Mandeville, to Colclough, to Madden, massive players who will play a huge part this season for us. But we've managed to kind of bridge that gap. Obviously, Mark Handay, he'll play a big role too. But I just think we've got quality across the side. And once all our injured players are back, I don't know how Cook chooses 11 players out of all the options he's got.
Yeah, I mean, you certainly won't want injuries when the game is mount up. But I actually think at this stage of the season, when you're only playing one league game a week, the injuries have in a way allowed Markande, Armando Dobra, James Berry, and Will Grigg to forge a real understanding, and they rotated and interchanged just seamlessly in that game at Crewe that I saw. And you seem to have been creating chances in those home draws with Swindon on the opening night and against Salford as well. You created lots of chances in those games. So that attacking quartet seemed to have a real understanding.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we said after the Gillingham game, I don't think there's been a single game that we haven't dominated this season so far. The Swindon match, they had one shot on target all game. I think it must have had a 0.01 XG and it's flown into...
Yeah, it was a Will Wright strike, wasn't it? You're normally, from a tactical perspective, normally quite happy if the opposing centre half has a pop from range, if that's what you're limited to. So, yeah, can't argue too much with that one.
No. And obviously, Grimsby, we conceded a similar kind of goal as well with Vernon breaking through the midfield. And I think that's probably one area where I would say we are a little bit still working things out, because we've started the season with Banks and Oldacre, and that was our sort of double pivot a couple of years ago before we brought in Tom Naylor in the National League.
Yeah.
And the one thing we noticed with it is, while they're both technically very good players, very good on the ball, good at passing, good at dribbling, etc., they're not necessarily the most defensively minded. And last year, we kind of bridged that gap by bringing in Naylor and pairing him with one or the other, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Whereas this year, like I say, Cook's gone for the sort of all-out attack of having both of them. And he's dropped Naylor back off the centre half, which, to be fair, Naylor's done a really good job there.
He looks brilliant at centre half, Tom Naylor. I thought he was probably one of your best players in the game that I saw. And you can see he brings that quality from the back, having been a midfielder, and the way he sort of supports play from behind, and scored a couple of goals as well.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. And obviously, him and Dunkley, you just got utter composure, haven't you? Neither of them are fazed by anything. Dunkley wins every single header going, and he just touches the ball down like it's nothing and just lays it off. So you don't worry about the defence. And I don't worry about it even if Grimes is in there either. I mean, he's had a bit of flack in the past couple of years for sort of not being the most technically gifted, sort of lump it and hope kind of centre half. But I think that's a bit harsh, because I think his passing is actually better than people give him credit for. And he's also very solid in the tackle and wins headers. I just think he's probably not the quickest. That's the one thing with Grimes. But I would say dropping Naylor off the centre half, the one thing he has done is it's kind of made us a little bit more exposed down the middle. Having said that, we just brought in John Fleck, and I think that might sort of fix that issue a little bit.
Interesting, yeah, because again, I've loved watching Ollie Banks this season. I think he's a bit like a League Two Scholes with the vision that he has. Darren Oldacre, like you say, not a bad technician either. And I definitely think Fleck comes into that category with the high league quality that he's got. Another player with a bit of nous. But what was I going to say? I was actually wondering whether there's going to be a place for Metcalfe in midfield as well, because he's supposed to be apparently a bit more of a box-to-box type. So he brings you something different that no one else in midfield offers. And there might come a stage where Paul Cook looks at him and thinks, I want a bit of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he brought in Tim Akinola hoping he was going to be that kind of box-to-box player. But
yeah, I was surprised he got loaned out, actually, Tom.
Yeah, I've seen he's got an injury at Dagenham as well, which is a real shame for him because he just needs to play games, and that's why we sent him there. And now he's going to be sidelined for God knows how long, so that's a bit annoying. But hopefully he recovers quickly. But yeah, either way, I mean, if players like John Fleck and, like you say, Jensen Metcalfe are available, you get them in, don't you? Because they just add quality to the team, and like you say as well, they add something a bit different to what we've already got.
Yeah, they certainly do. Personally, Tom, from having seen Chester, I didn't think you were great against Grimsby, and possibly a little bit fortunate to get on the winning side of that one with the chances they created. Certainly, the most creative an opposing team has been against Chesterfield so far this season. But I would say on balance that I'm actually more impressed by Chesterfield, and you've kind of gone up a bit up in my estimations from the first 5 games than maybe before the season. I'm wondering if that's how you feel from a fan's perspective.
I'm not sure, really. I mean, I've always been saying this before a ball was kicked, we're going to get better as the season goes on this year because we've got some players who need to adapt to the level. We've got a lot of new players in who need time to gel. So, and obviously we've got injuries too early on. So once all those things start coming together, I think we're only going to get better and better. What I will say is, from the first game, like I say, other than that Grimsby match, we've dominated every game and we've created loads of chances. Ironically, I think our issue has been taking the chances at the right times. And I think if we'd done that against Swindon, if we'd done that against Salford, we'd have won both those games. So I think it's actually having that clinical edge up front that we probably need to work on the most. And
yeah, you've only got Will Grigg up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, only Will Grigg. Yeah, what a shame. But no, obviously we've got Paddy Madden coming back as well, who's going to be a real goal threat, you would hope. So yeah, like I say, it's just biding our time a little bit, winning the games that we can win, not losing the games that we can't win. And I think once we get everybody back, we could go on a bit of a roll, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree with that. Definitely taking Chesterfield seriously as a top 3 proposition. But early days yet, but impressive stuff. Tom, thanks so much for joining us from the Spireites Write, and good luck for the rest of the season, mate.
Cheers, mate. Thanks for having me on.
Top man. Thanks to all our guests for joining us on EFL Debate this evening. This has been the League 2 podcast, and we're back same time next week.